Did you know that you need to know 98% of the words in the text to fully comprehend the text? I see people watch videos a lot to learn their vocabulary, but all of them make this particular mistake. Today I'm going to give you some tips on how you can improve your English vocabulary. Now, the first thing you need to do when it comes to improving your English vocabulary is one that is a bit obvious. You need to improve your exposure. As I've said many times before, exposure is key when it comes to language learning. And for vocabulary, it's the same. The more exposure you have, the more incidental vocabulary learning will take place. Incidental learning means that you're learning something by accident. And that means that you're not paying attention or focusing on something, or that you have a teacher explaining something to you when you're learning it. Maybe you've experienced this before, that you're watching something on Netflix and then you see a word and then you see it several times and then you use it in your own vocabulary. That's incidental learning. Incidental learning is very useful, but you need to encounter a word 7 or 8 times before it actually sticks in your long-term memory. And you also want to make sure that you encounter the words in different contexts so that you can make different links about the meanings of those words. And by seeing the word in different contexts, you'll gather all the information about the words in those different contexts. And this is what we call dynamic contexts. Now, dynamic contexts are very useful when it comes to language learning because they require more cognitive activity, which means that your brain is actively processing the word when it encounters it in different contexts. And research has shown that the more active your brain is during a learning activity, the more learning will take place. Research has also shown that the more you encounter a word in the text, the less time it takes you to understand what that word means. This means that if you encounter a new word and it appears in the text more often, the first time might take a lot of time to really understand the word and you need to think of what it means and look up what it means. The second time you already know what it means and you only need to look at the context. And after 5, 6 or 7 times, the word kind of blends away with the rest of the words and it actually became part of your vocabulary. But this only happens if it appears several times in one text, and it doesn't happen that often that one word appears a lot in a particular text. Next, you want to make sure that you have something called a vocabulary notebook. Now, we can talk a lot about vocabulary notebooks because I love them. And research has shown that vocabulary notebooks are actually very useful when it comes to vocabulary learning. Not only do they stimulate active learning, which means that you pay attention to a word and then you write it down and you need to look up what it means, they also help you when you want to use the word in your own vocabulary. For example, when you're writing something or when you're talking to somebody. Now, there are official vocabulary notebooks online and I'll put one in the description for you to buy on Amazon. But you can also use any other old school regular notebook and simply write down the words that you encounter and that you don't know. As long as you look up the definition, maybe a translation, the pronunciation, and also some other definitions the word may have, you can build your own vocabulary notebook and have kind of your own personal dictionary. Now, only collecting them in that vocabulary notebook might not be enough. You might want to do something with those words as well. This means that you might want to use the words in your own vocabulary. For example, when you're talking to someone, you might want to slip one of those new words in once in a while. You could also choose to write the words on a post-it and stick them around your house like Michael Scott did in the office when he was learning Spanish. That's also very useful because then you encounter the words several times, which was very good as you've learned in tip 1. And you can use them and do something with the words while you're actually seeing them around your house. Now, you might want to discuss this with your significant other before you fill your house with post-its with English words on it, but it is a very useful way to actually learn vocabulary. Next to the vocabulary notebook and increasing your exposure, you also want to use something like a vocabulary list. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go through the list and look up all the words you don't know and study those by heart. But a vocabulary list might be a useful place to start if you don't know how to actually learn your vocabulary. Now, the people at Oxford have created the Oxford 3000 and the Oxford 5000. And both are very useful when you want to learn your vocabulary. The good thing about these lists is that they list the words based on their level. So if you're doing C1 Advanced or B2 First, you already know which words are considered C1 and which words are considered B2, for example. Now, finally, I have a bonus tip for you. I talked about incidental learning in the beginning, and I mentioned that you can learn vocabulary while watching Netflix or reading something, listening to songs or listening to podcasts. But I want to focus on video for a second. I see people watch videos a lot to learn their vocabulary, but all of them make this particular mistake. And I think if you avoid this mistake, your vocabulary learning will go much quicker and you learn more difficult words without any hassle. What people often do is when they watch a video and they don't really understand what it means, they use their native language in the captions. However, you don't want to do this. Research has shown that if you use the second language in the subtitles, you will actually improve your vocabulary rapidly. This means that your brain can link the word to what you see on screen. So next time when you're watching something online, on YouTube, or maybe on Netflix or Hulu or whatever streaming service we're using now, make sure that you use English subtitles if that is the language you want to learn. But there's one final caveat you definitely need to pay attention to. Make sure that the thing you're watching is not too difficult. Remember that I said that you need to know 98% of all the words to fully comprehend something. If you know only 50 or 60% of the words, you can't really enhance your vocabulary and you won't learn any new words because your brain is very busy trying to understand what's going on. Make sure that you find something that's not too difficult but still above the level where you are now. If you're a beginner, start with short YouTube videos, something you can comprehend easily. If you're more advanced, let's say C1 or C2 level, you can move on to longer documentaries, BBC programs and stuff on Netflix. Again, make sure that you watch it in English and you use English subtitles. So these were a few ways you can enhance your vocabulary learning. If you found this video useful, please consider giving it a thumbs up. If you want to stay tuned what my other videos are, consider subscribing. Let me know in the comments, what was the most difficult English word you've learned until now? For now, thank you for watching and I hope to see you in one of my next videos.